know that some in our audience know the finer points of hockey.
The Chris Johnston Show.
We are your friends.
The biggest stories, bringing you inside the game.
What did you hear?
The Chris Johnston Show. Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada's sportsbook.
What is going on?
Here's Chris with your host, Julian McKenzie.
Part of the game.
Big Money Siege. Before we get to all the hockey stuff, the Toronto Maple Leafs are very much a topic of discussion in this first part of our segment. And also we're going to have sports interaction. And today is American Thanksgiving. So happy day to everyone who celebrates. And we will be getting to all the teams who are currently in the playoff spot. And we'll go through our contenders and pretenders segment like we did last year. But before we get to all that, Canada versus Belgium yesterday in the Men's World Cup. Siege, what did you think?
This one ripped me apart, man. Because on one hand, you're just so excited to see them play that well and really go for it. And probably, I don't even think probably, I mean, objectively, whether you're Canadian or not, I think they deserved a better result than what they got. And so I'm trying to focus on the positive side, that they played a game that was that electric, that was that much fun. You know, North Star Bets had a viewing party type deal in Toronto here. So I was watching it with about 500 other people, and that even added to it. A lot of friendly faces there. David Amber, shout out. Suleiman, lots of good friends there. So it was a fun day. It was really cool to see Canada play that well. And then that's what I'm saying. I have these conflicting emotions because, you know, the painful reality is if they don't win some of these games, then the games will be over pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty short because they get back to it on Sunday against Croatia, and we'll talk about that game in Sports Interaction. So if they lose to Croatia, it's over. I mean, yes, they will have one more game after. Maybe they get a win or another result against Morocco. But if they lose against Croatia, the World Cup dream in 2022 is over. But let's not think that way.
Is there a scenario if they draw that game, they can still get through?
There is. I think they might need some help, but they would definitely still need to win that final game against Morocco to get through. They definitely need a result of some kind against Croatia. They cannot afford to drop any more points.
I'll tell you this. I am not going to even vaguely moonlight as a soccer or football savvy individual at all. But shouldn't there have been another penalty called in the first half? Or am I seeing that through Canadian colored glasses like that?
No. You're not being crazy. There should have been a penalty on the challenge that went uncalled involving Tajon Buchanan, and I forget which Belgian defender tripped him up. Yes, there should have been one.
Yeah, Belgium played like junk, man. And I didn't like the celebration after the goal. The friggin' goal. I mean, that came out of nowhere. Jesus.
It did come out of. You know what it is? I didn't expect to come away from that game thinking Canada should have won. I figured they were going to be competitive. I didn't think, like, after the game, I'd be like, Canada should have won like 3-1 or 4-1.
No, I actually thought they were going to have to play cynically and like play a really boring game and just try to take advantage of a mistake. You know, the way we see a lot of the smaller nations in international hockey play, and when it gets to best on best, right? And you know, rely on your goaltender or this or that. But like, the fact they like took it to them for a good portion of the game was insane. One of the guys standing with me there actually had the expected goals. I don't know where it ended up, but at one point it was like 2 expected goals to 0.5 or something. Like it was, anyway. Yeah. As you can tell, I'm all over the place. Cause like, I just did not, I'm with you. I just did not expect them to be good. Maybe I should have had higher expectations. Cause they were really good in the qualifying campaign, obviously. So it's not like, but, you know, you just think you get to a different level when you're playing, you know, Belgium or, you know, some of these other top teams from Europe.
Yeah, like Belgium, I mean, they're the second ranked team in all of FIFA. Like that was the hardest team in their group that they were going to go up against. And they gave them a challenge. Batshuayi, who scored the goal to give Belgium the win, I think even after, was surprised at how good Canada was. But again, they need a result against Croatia. And if they do, all eyes will be on Canada versus Morocco as they finish out that group. But yeah, very much some excitement from both of us following Canada at the Men's World Cup. We'll be tracking that after on our Monday show. You'll see how we feel after that. This is it. Yeah. Oh man, I love it. I love these sideshows that we end up creating when we talk about topics that have nothing to do with hockey. But yeah, the World Cup. Before we get to sports interaction, the Toronto Maple Leafs, they've been very busy the last little while with Morgan Riley going on LTIR. They get Conor Timmins, I believe another product of the Sioux.
That's correct.
Yeah.
The Greyhound alumni is really strong in the Leafs dressing room or in the Leafs organization.
What is this obsession with Sioux? I mean, I know Kyle Dubas was there, but like, isn't this a bit much? Like, he keeps getting these players.
I mean, it might be. I actually like this trade myself because obviously the Leafs defense is depleted. In this case, they're not giving up very much, just a prospect from their farm team. But, it's not like they're spending draft capital to do it. He's only 24 years old. He's had a really rough run, this being Conor Timmins, of injuries. He's had neck and knee issues. He missed a good chunk of time with concussion problems earlier in his career. But he's a right shot defenseman, and he's got some size, which is two things the Leafs don't have in abundance, even if you look down the depth chart below the NHL level. And so I think that it makes a lot of sense to go get him, and probably doesn't matter where he played his junior hockey. But I think in the big picture, I mean, even Jared McCann, who never actually played for the Leafs, they made a trade for him and then promptly lost him to Seattle in the expansion draft. Had Sioux ties, Nick Ritchie, Rasmus Sandin was drafted out of the Sault Ste. Marie. Joe Thornton played in the Sioux once upon a time. Matt Murray, Jack Campbell. I mean, there's the list goes on and on of players that Kyle Dubas. Well, I mean, in the case of Joe Thornton, for example, that was before Dubas was in the Sioux in a productive way. But yeah, there's a pattern there, and I mean, it is what it is. They're all NHL players, and I think in the case of Conor Timmins, as I say, given the organizational need right now, that was a nice tidy trade at a time when they don't really have a lot of flexibility to make a move.
Exactly. For the record, I'm joking about the Sioux thing. It doesn't matter if the players work; they work. Any thoughts on the Leafs slump, stopping the winning streak by the New Jersey Devils, and how it was weird, like 3 goals disallowed on the part of at least coming from the Devils anyway, and then fans throwing debris on the ice. I was trying to follow while I was watching the Flames Penguins game. That was really cool. The Penguins honoring Evgeny Malkin before that game. But yeah, what did you think of the Leafs game?
Well, I actually think that they've turned a corner here the last little while. November has been really good for them. I know they've dropped a couple games in overtime, but they've only lost 1 in regulation out of the last 10 or 11. They beat Boston, the team that hasn't lost many games. They beat New Jersey, although that was with some help from some overturned goals, and Matt Murray had a good performance. But I do think that we're seeing them get their legs under them, and it should be said they're missing their top 3 paid defensemen, probably their best 3 defensemen objectively, to injury right now. They also lost Jordy Ben in the game, so it's not going to get any easier for them as they continue on their road trip. But I think Toronto has rebounded quite nicely from a sluggish start. Still waiting maybe to see a little bit more from their top offensive guys, but I'm not sure if that'll come when they're really kind of bailing water on the back end. I mean, Justin Hall played 25 minutes in that game. Mark Giordano, bless his soul, he's 39. He played almost 25 himself. I mean, they're just leaning on players. Rasmus Sandin was over 20 minutes that wouldn't normally be getting those kind of minutes in probably an ideal scenario, but this is sports, and they're getting by. And so I think that was good. The debris on the ice. What are you going to say? I saw there was also some candy thrown on the ice in Denver last night too. I mean, I don't know what is with this. I mean, I don't even. Does this need to be said? Like, don't do that. That's stupid. There's lots of ways to vocalize your unhappiness with the call or with the performance of your team. I think in this case, obviously the referees they're upset with, but don't do that. That was stupid. One of the Devils players, I think it was Eric Hollis, said he got hit with a chicken finger. So given what arena prices are too, like who wants to be just throwing that food on the ice? Come on.
Yeah, it's a waste of money.
And it's just no way to react. I mean, come on, silly.
It's ridiculous. And yes, there was a bag of candy thrown in the Canucks Avalanche game. I think the commentators were saying that the bag hit Elias Pettersson, I think, while they were waiting for a face-off. And you just see this bag of candy just exploded onto the ground. Like it's very childish. Like jerseys and stuff like that that's bad enough. food, like, nah, this is, yeah, I don't think we have to be police officers about this or parents about this, but stop throwing food on the
Do
ice.
chant, do whatever you want. I just think that there's a line and that's crossing it.
Absolutely.
Did I ever tell you about the game I covered World Hockey Championship in Latvia?
Which game?
2006 Worlds were in Riga. Canada played Latvia. There's like all this anticipation for the game. And the referee called 16 minor penalties on Latvia. And Canada won. It was a really lopsided score, 10-1 or something. And literally the game had to be stopped 2 or 3 times. Someone threw a shoe on the ice, a cell phone. There was like $50 worth of coins swept off the ice. Like the Latvian players had to come out and like calm the fans, obviously in the local language. And you know, after the game, so it was one of the wildest games I've ever attended, just straight up. Like it was nuts. And then I'm back at my hotel. I think maybe like having a beer or something in the hotel bar after the game. And I hear like this drum beat. It's like, doom, boom. It's getting closer. I'm like, what is that? And all of a sudden there's like a mob in front of our hotel of Latvian fans. Cause I guess the referees were staying at my hotel and they were pounding a drum and going, F you referee. But they weren't saying F. Like into the middle of the night, the Latvian fans were so passionate and angry. So,
oh my God.
Anyway,
that's scary. That
sticks in my mind. That's like over 15 years ago, and it sticks in my mind today because it was little. I've never been in an atmosphere like that. It was crazy.
Never heard that story, but that would scare me. Like that. I mean, you don't know what those fans are going to do at that point.
Yeah, I was too young and dumb. I didn't feel threatened. I thought it was kind of hilarious, but you know, and I don't think anything happened. But they were.
Yeah. That
was the extent of how angry they were. So, I mean, shout out Latvian hockey fans, very passionate, bring a lot of fun and color to the world tournaments, but that went a little far that night.
A little far. Just a little. But anyway, great story. I haven't heard that one.
Yeah, imagine throwing your cell phone on the ice. So this is like a long time ago. It would have been like an old school flip phone or something, but a cell phone on the ice, there was a shoe. Like there's like, imagine you're the one guy leaving the rink with only one shoe. Like you're going to get caught anyway.
Waste of. Anyway, if you have any fun, well, not so fun stories of seeing stuff thrown on the ice, maybe you'll reference the waffle being thrown at a Leafs game once. Leave it in the comments section. We'd love to hear it. In the meantime, Sports Interaction is next. You can bet that our segment that we normally do with David Bastel, DB, not available with us today. So it's just going to be CJ and I. CJ, I hope you're okay with the fact that we won't have DB as the man in the middle. Yeah, hopefully that's okay. With Sports Interaction, for those 19 and over, we ask that you please play responsibly. There is a link to responsible gaming strategies in the description of the show. It's time for You Can Bet That.
Sports Interaction, Canada's Sportsbook, presents You Can Bet That with David Bastel. Must be 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Ontario only.
Welcome to You Can Bet That. Remember to hit up sportsinteraction.com/SDPN for all of your gaming needs. Let's look ahead to the next Canada World Cup game between themselves and Croatia. Croatia at plus 117, Canada at plus 206. If you think that game will end in a draw, the odds are at plus 239. Where do you think this game goes, Siege?
Well, come on. There's no way I'm going to come on here and say that Croatia's winning. Like there is no universe. Even if that is a logical conclusion, there's just no universe, man. I am not hiding my passport or my colors in this case. Like I am pumped that Canada's in the Men's World Cup, and I am saying they're beating Croatia. And I'm just not an objective take offer on this particular subject. So I'm hammering Canada's finally going to score a goal for the first time at the Men's World Cup, and they're going to win the game.
Right. You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Luka Modric does not scare Chris Johnston. He is all for Team Canada. And
I'll even offer you up a prop bet. I think Kyle Larin will score for Canada.
Okay. All right. I love
he's
this.
Coming off the bench right now, but I still think he's gonna be the one.
Awesome. That is perfect. Don't forget to check out sportsinteraction.com/SDPN for all the best odds before game, in game, and the best props. sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. CJ, it is time to bring back a segment that we did last year at American Thanksgiving called Contenders or Pretenders.
This
where
is
we,
the ultimate segment where I just radio myself. Because no matter what I say, you're going to slap that label one way or the other on a team. So it doesn't matter how I couch it or any asterisk I provide. It's just going to be this team pretender. I don't like
I mean, that's kind of how the game works, man. I mean, last year when you did it, the only real surprise was that you marked Edmonton with the pretender label. And in all fairness, I understood why you did.
Well, and then they went to the Western Conference Finals. So how did that turn out for me?
Actually, funny you mentioned that. So,
like, what
I
are
have
we?
the list.
I actually think we should have it. Like, what do you mean by contender and pretender?
So what I mean by contender, I don't mean it in the like this team should be a Stanley Cup contending team. I just think like, do you see them as like a playoff team? Contender's just like a trendy name that just works in this scenario.
Right. Because like pretender sounds harsh.
It does sound harsh.
But last year when I said that about Edmonton, I just didn't see them winning the cup with their goaltending. Like, I'll even spare you the drama. If you say Edmonton again, I don't see them winning the cup with their goaltending. But do I have to call them a pretender or what? Like, how does that work?
I understand the dilemma here.
They have two of the absolute best players in the world having monster seasons yet again. But I don't see it. Honestly, it's been a disaster with Jack Campbell. You know, praise up Stuart Skinner, but I just think it's a lot to ask of him. His first full NHL season. They don't have cap room, really. I mean, I guess they have Evander Kane's cap space now because of the gruesome injury he suffered. I don't know. I don't see them winning a cup, but this is a crazy league. Like, how many teams could win the cup right now? Like, I think it's like 10, and that's not me sitting on the fence. Like, I think this season has actually been super exciting from the standpoint of there's been a lot of unexpected things happening, a lot of long winning streaks and losing streaks. Like, it's been a kind of interesting start to the season. And I think there's a lot of teams that could win. So I'm worried I'm going to be handing out the contenders like Halloween candy on the 31st of October right now. But
well, you already just said that you were thinking of 10 teams that could win a Stanley Cup. So I'm very intrigued at what you think those 10 teams are. That sounds to me like you have 10 contenders.
All right. Well, let's get into it.
All right.
This is a long way of saying I know I'm just going to like fill my social media feed with a lot of crap now.
Who cares? I'm sure it's not that bad.
No, it's not too bad. But it does get you down. Some days, some days you don't like seeing all the hate in there. Some days you laugh at it. But other days
you're passionate, man. Like it happens. I mean, you know what? I shouldn't say that about other people's mentions because, like, I know when my mentions get flooded, I get all like, I get antsy about that. So I hope that they don't get too bad, and I don't think they'll get that bad. I honestly just think, like, with the teams that you're probably going to say as contenders, I'm not going to be that surprised. But one way to find out. One thing I just wanted to mention though, with last year's contenders pretenders list, yes, Edmonton was on there, but there's something else I noticed that was really interesting too. So Carolina, Florida, Toronto, Tampa, Minnesota, St. Louis, Winnipeg, Calgary, Vegas, and Colorado were contending teams. Colorado, we know what happened with them last year. They go through the whole thing. They win the Stanley Cup. They were tied for the second to last wildcard spot at the time of U.S. Thanksgiving last year, for what it's worth.
Oh, so the only one I picked there, Winnipeg missed the playoffs. Was there anyone else that missed the playoffs that I said contender?
Vegas.
Yeah.
Because Vegas just missed.
I stand by Vegas as a contender last year. They you can't imagine the amount of injuries and everything they had. Like you can't forecast for that in November.
Also, the other two teams who were in the West in their conference finals respectively, the Rangers and the Oilers, not mentioned as contenders. So hey, anything could happen. That's the whole point of this exercise. If you get mad, whatever. But like anything can happen. It's just a fun thing for us to look at. But anyway.
Well, and I'm making a call on November 24th, and the playoffs don't start till mid-April. Like a lot of stuff can happen between then and now. Trades, injuries. Maybe I'll come to see the light on a team. Maybe a team will start playing better, right? I mean, I'm only can work on what I'm seeing from the teams today. And, anyway, let's get in this.
Let's start in
Producer Nick already says Boston's winning the cup. So I mean, why are we even having a season now?
Let's just go home. Let's just go home because the Boston Bruins, the team that is a team of destiny, winning the cup. Let's start with the Metropolitan Division. I'm going to go through the top 3 teams in each division, and then we'll start with the Eastern Conference. I'll start with the top 3 teams in the Metro and then the Atlantic, and then the teams in the 2 wildcard spots. So in the Metro, let's start with the New Jersey Devils, who currently lead that division.
This is a red hot screaming contender. Like, let's double underline the Devils contender status, because
I have double underlined it.
I'm not just looking at a 13-game win streak, which I know has been ended at this recording, but I'm just looking at the full range of the way they play. They have thoroughly dominated the league this year. They, like, seriously, their underlying shot metrics, expected goals for, everything are off the charts. You know, even in losing to the Leafs on Wednesday night, they had a territorial advantage in that game. I just think they are a 100% contender. I know that there's a lot of growing and learning that might have to happen quickly for them to actually go and win a Stanley Cup, you know, with players like Nico Hischier and Jack Hughes being so important to them and not having that playoff experience. Typically we haven't seen that happen, but I don't see any reason. If I'm not calling them a contender, this whole exercise is flawed, because to me, they're the number 1 contender in the league based on the play so far through 6 weeks of the season.
It's interesting that the Devils don't have that much experience. And then they have Lindy Ruff, who has boatloads of playoff experience.
Yeah, I mean, that's a hard thing to know how their season's going to develop. But if we're just going off what we're seeing, they have started great. And the hard thing is it's such a long season. Obviously, teams do have swings up and down. I think some of the really good teams in the league, a team like Colorado, and look, Colorado's dealing with a ton of injuries too, so this is a factor. But they maybe don't get up for the first part of the season as much as some of these teams that have something to prove. And so, you know, we might see the Devils retreat a little bit in terms of how much of a contender I think they are. But again, just going off of what we've seen so far, I'm impressed by them. I'm top to bottom. I mean, Lindy Ruff is he's seen some things. You know, we were talking about him at the start of the year. Maybe his job's on the line if things don't go well. Well, to say they've gone well would be an understatement to this stage.
Let's move on to the New York Islanders. They are second in the Metropolitan Division.
I see them as a pretender. Look, I think they're good enough to be a playoff team for sure. If we're talking about a contender to win the Stanley Cup, I don't see it as much. I know they've got a fantastic goaltender and a certain way of playing games that has had playoff success in the past that got them to back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals under Barry Trotz. But I still think they're missing something offensively that is needed. Now, you know, maybe they're one of the teams that have been mentioned. Maybe they get in the Patrick Kane sweepstakes later in the year. There's certainly things that they can do maybe to go up in my eyes. But, you know, at this stage, I just don't see them among the teams I consider a real Stanley Cup threat this season.
The Carolina Hurricanes to round out the Metropolitan Division's top 3 teams.
Contender. I mean, they're another one, you know, just as they always are. It seems like all of the underlying numbers there are positive. They have the experience that we're talking about New Jersey maybe not having. You know, Carolina's been through some playoff battles and you know, really followed what I think would be the model you see for teams that ultimately win a Stanley Cup is going through that, experiencing disappointment, learning how to play, you know, because the games do change when you get to that part of the year. I think that you know, we still have some lack of clarity in their goaltending picture. You know, they signed a young goaltender on Wednesday, Pyotr Kochetkov, pardon me for the pronunciation. And he's had really encouraging start to his NHL career, but we don't know if Frederik Andersen's going to be in net. I mean, there's question marks in Carolina when it comes to it, but I just think they've been a really good team for a really long time, and they've got lots of players. I mean, Marty Necas has had a great start to the year, Svechnikov as well. So I think they have all the tools needed to go and win the thing.
Are you aware that Pyotr Kochetkov's nickname, according to Carolina Hurricanes Twitter, is Coochie?
I am. I saw that yesterday when he signed his deal, Coochie. I feel weird calling him Coochie, but I mean, I can at least pronounce that a little bit better. I got to work on that one because it looks like he's going to be a goaltender to watch.
Yeah, I feel weird about Coochie. And I think, you know what, we'll just leave that there. Let's just go to the Atlantic Division and the Boston Bruins. I wonder what you're going to say about those guys.
Well, you can triple underline the Bruins, not just double, because they have all the positives that New Jersey does, and they have lots of players that have been there and done that. And you know, we're really close to winning a Stanley Cup in 2019 with the core of this team largely still intact. You know, really impressive start to the year. You know, I would have, I'm not sure if we did this in the preseason, but I know what my mindset was at that time. If we were talking about teams likely to fall off, I had the Bruins in mind entering this season. I wasn't going to say they were going to miss the playoffs outright, but I just thought it was going to be a tougher early stretch with the injuries they had, with some of the offseason changes. You know, I think highly of Bruce Cassidy as a coach and wasn't sure how it would go under Jim Montgomery. Well, again, if any of those preseason questions have been answered pretty resoundingly here to start the year. And so I would not be the least bit surprised to see Boston parlay this into a special season. And, you know, it's pretty cool too. Patrice Bergeron nearly retired, right? And here he is, you know, maybe with a chance to win the thing before actually going off into the sunset.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting story. What about the Toronto Maple Leafs?
I'll say contender. You know, I'm a little closer to this team than the others in terms of watching them more and being around them day to day. I don't see what we've seen. Again, I'm going off the results. What we've seen so far, I don't think they're playing like a contender just yet, but I'm reasonably confident that their top players, namely Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner, are going to catch some fire compared to where they've been in the season. And I know that management has been pretty active in trying to improve the team. I think that, you know, they're going to have cap space and they're going to make some trades between now and the deadline. And so I'm breaking my own strict rules here about how I'm going to label this, but I don't think it'd be fair to call them a pretender. I mean, even that they're winning all the games they have in November without their full lineup, with the injuries they've had, you know, I think that they're deserving of the C word rather than the P word. But I'm going to have to see more. You know, I think when we revisit this, it'll be a little easier, deeper into the schedule, because I want to see what moves they make. You know, I think that they understand they need both help at forward and defense. And I think Kyle Dubas will make moves in that regard, but they're still winning games with the team they have now. And I think that gives them the small C contender status.
Let's go to the Detroit Red Wings, who are third in the Atlantic Division.
I love a good story as much as anyone else. I love that Ville Husso has gone there and done really well, you know, with a goaltender that was a UFA last year, but hadn't had a lot of experience. You didn't know how that would work out. You know, they made some savvy signings. They're definitely an improved team, but they're a pretender. You know, I don't see them as a huge threat to anyone at all. And I think, in fact, that they'll have a tough time hanging on to that playoff spot as the season goes along. So, you know, they're on the rise, but I don't think they're there yet.
Let's get to the wildcard teams. Actually, there's two teams tied for a spot, but they trail the New York Rangers at 24 points.
So the Rangers? Are you asking?
So the Rangers are the team I'm asking, and then the other two teams actually that are tied are Tampa Bay and Pittsburgh.
Okay, Rangers and Tampa contender. Look, this is a tough year for the Lightning. They've been to 3 straight Stanley Cup finals. Like, I'm not sure our memories, just because it all happened during the pandemic. Like, it's hard to remember what's what, but they played a lot of hockey. So if this year ends up being a bit of a step back for Tampa, I don't think anyone would be too surprised, just given they've played like an extra season during the last 3 seasons because of all the playoff games. But I still, until proven otherwise, like, I still think they're going to show up in the playoffs and be a really hard out for whomever they play in the first round. So they're still a contender for me. The Rangers, it hasn't gone great this year for them. I think that they've, you know, faced maybe a little bit of adversity early in the season, but you know, they showed us enough last year. I mean, I was sleeping on them last year in this exercise. I'm not doing it again. I think that they're another team that will be active as we get closer to the deadline. They could very well add Patrick Kane. That's going to change the whole conversation about their team if they do so. And I just don't see any glaring holes. So they got some of that experience last year. it's been a slower start to the season, but for me, they're a contender. And the Penguins, unfortunately, I'm going to have to put the pretender status on them. I am aware in my preseason predictions, I had them going to the Stanley Cup final. So this is an about face 6-7 weeks later, but it doesn't feel like it's happening there in Pittsburgh. I know that's not, maybe that answer is lacking a little bit, but I just don't know that they're going to be able to put it all together. Look at the age of some of their players. They've had a bit of a bounce back here after a long losing streak at the end of October, but I don't know. To me, they're not a serious threat to win the Stanley Cup this year.
Okay. Is there a team currently outside of the playoff picture? I'll just list off the teams that are currently outside of it right now. Florida, Montreal, Philadelphia, Washington, Buffalo, Columbus, and Ottawa. Is there a team outside of it that you think, or I guess you think is, I mean, obviously not just the most notable team, but is there a team that you think could still end up sneaking into the playoffs when it's all said and done that's out of it?
Florida. Like Florida to me is, I know that they're not the same team that won the President's Trophy last year. They had a lot of turnover in the offseason, but I still think that they're good enough to be deserving of contender status. And I certainly think that they're a playoff team. Now, they got some cap struggles. I mean, I know that that's true of a lot of teams, but they have Anthony Duclair coming back here in the next few weeks, and they're going to have to free up cap space for him. They've already played with a short lineup a couple times because of cap problems and injuries and the like. And so it's not going to be easy for that organization to get in. But maybe I'm of the view that sometimes a little bit of struggle through the regular season can be a good thing for a team. I think sometimes if you cruise through in the manner that New Jersey and Boston have been. And look, it's not their fault. You're supposed to win every game. They're winning every game, but it maybe doesn't harden you for the battles to come, as well as the teams that have to grind and find their way that way. So, I'd still watch out for the Panthers among that group of teams that's on the outside looking in. I mean, you want to look at Washington, you see Nicholas Backstrom back skating after his hip surgery. You wonder about him coming back, but I kind of see them as the Penguins. I just think that they've slipped into kind of the lower tier of the conference. Just, their best players are getting up there in age, and their organizations that have traded away a lot of futures to be competitive for a long period of time. And so anyway, Florida's my contender team among the non-playoff outfits today.
All right. So your contenders as of now: New Jersey, Carolina, Boston, Toronto, New York Rangers, Tampa Bay, and Florida. By the way, when we do it for the Western side, if we, looking at the teams that are outside of the playoffs, currently it's Vancouver, San Jose, Arizona, Chicago, and Anaheim. I don't think you have a contender in that list, or I'm assuming. No.
I got a couple contenders on that list for Connor Bedard sweepstakes, but that's about it.
Yeah. So we don't have to do that same thing for the Western Conference teams. Frankly, there's more than enough possible contending teams tied for that second and last wildcard spot, so we can kind of figure that out between those teams. But anyway,
there's just not as many contenders in the West. Now, that doesn't mean
that's true.
A Western team won't win the Cup, because it might be an easier path through the playoffs, the early part of the playoffs for teams out there. But I think the best teams by and large in the league are in the Eastern Conference.
Let's go to the Central Division. The Dallas Stars, they're having a great year. They lead atop the Central Division. What say you?
Contender. I think they're full value for what they've done. It's worked well with Peter DeBoer. Jason Robertson is an absolute star. No pun intended, because he's a Dallas Star.
Nice.
But
I see what you did there.
It's amazing. I can't remember if I've mentioned this on the pod. In the same year that they drafted Jason Robertson, they drafted Jake Ottinger and Miro Heiskanen. So they might have got a franchise player at forward, defense, and in goal all in the same draft. I mean, I'm that high on Jake Ottinger as a goaltender, and obviously Heiskanen's been one of the better defensemen in the league since really day one. So that's a tidy bit of business right there. And so that if you want to explain why I think Dallas is still relevant and good, that's really where it starts, because they have some higher priced players that are legacy players that have become more secondary, and Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin, but they've been able to remain competitive because of the injection of those three guys in particular. And they have other good players in their team. So I think they'll be probably trading for another forward at some point between now and March 3rd, perhaps an impactful one. And I think the Stars are a team to be reckoned with.
Let's go to the Colorado Avalanche, second in the Central Division.
Cap C contender, 4 underlines. For 4 signifying the number of rounds they won last year in the playoffs while winning the Stanley Cup. This is another example of a team that's going to probably have to scratch and claw more than we would have guessed, just because, look at their injured list. There's guys in their lineup I barely heard of, and I'm paid to write and talk about hockey. So, they've had to really dig into the organizational depth chart in the early part of the season. Obviously, they played a lot of hockey last year, had a short summer. I think that this is going to be a grind of a regular season for the Avs, but there's just too much talent, and the experience of last year is going to serve them well. So they're the number one contender for me in the Western Conference.
The Winnipeg Jets.
I'm going to call them a contender. I know we've slept on the Jets a little bit on this pod. I know you brought that up when Murat wrote a story about it. But I like the direction they're going. I think that they're built to win playoff games, and they got a goaltender that matches up pretty much, well with anyone. So they're a lot of things are going to have to go right for them to win a Stanley Cup, but that's, that happens sometimes. Right. And so, I think that they're a small C contender right now in the Western Conference.
So we move on from the Central Division to the Pacific Division. Let's start with the Vegas Golden Knights.
Contender. Last year is an aberration. It's one of those things, like you look at their entire history, it just, last year, everything that could go wrong went wrong. That's not happening now. I'm seeing all kinds of good reaction to Bruce Cassidy taking over the coaching job there. A healthy Jack Eichel. That's a team, in goal. We'll see how it holds up. It's been really good so far with Logan Thompson logging most of the starts, but I think that they're primed and ready, and I wouldn't surprise me to see Vegas come out of the West. It's going to be tough. They'll probably have to go through Colorado at some point to do it, but the Golden Knights are back, baby.
I like that. The Golden Knights are back, baby. That's a good quote. That's title potential. The Golden Knights are back, baby. Seattle, the Kraken.
Love a good story. Sorry, Seattle. I'm calling you guys pretenders. But that label comes with a hefty bit of respect for the way that organization has pulled itself up. This is, they were almost a non-entity last year. And I think that's kind of what you traditionally expect with an expansion team, but we almost didn't talk about them. Like there was just nothing to talk about. They've been for real. Martin Jones, who would ever guessed it, but he's had a great bounce back in goal for them after a number of seasons where his save percentage was on the wrong side of 900. They're playing hard. They're not an easy 2 points anymore when you go to Climate Pledge Arena. But I still, let's be realistic. They're still going to need time and to really build up their organization, to have some of their own draft picks become impactful players to a greater degree than they have today. And so I don't think anyone should expect them to be a contender in year 2 of existence. And I don't see them there just yet.
The Los Angeles Kings to round out the Pacific Division.
I think
this
the
is a thinker.
Well, because I want to say, I'm trying not to give out too many contenders, but I do think the Kings could be a contender. I really like the direction they're going. Let's remember, they gave Edmonton everything they could handle in round 1. They nearly were a team that played in the second round last year. I still think that there's a little something missing, but they're a team. There could be a sneaky team in the Patrick Kane thing too. I know that I brought that up for a few teams, but that changes the complexion if they go out and make that kind of move. I'll call them a contender, but I'm not, as you can tell, I'm not terribly bullish on it. Like I'm a little bit, like I'm on the fence a little bit, because I just wonder if I'm expecting too much to go right for them to actually be a team that could have a long playoff run this spring.
So for those trying to keep track, and CJ, please add a team if I'm missing. You've mentioned the Islanders, the Rangers, and now the Kings as a team to watch out for in the Patrick Kane sweepstakes. Am I missing a team?
It'll be more than that. I wonder about Toronto. I do. I'm not saying, like, no one with the Leafs has told me they're interested. It's nothing like that, but it I don't know. It might make some sense for them. Then you might argue, well, they already have Mitch Marner, who's a better version in today's game of what Patrick Kane does. Like, is it too much of a good thing? I don't know. But yeah, those three teams I could see being interested. There'll be more, though. I mean, it's a little premature, too. Like, the way that the Chicago management and Kane and his agent have decided to do this is basically revisit it come January. So, I mean, we're still another almost 6 weeks from when I think this will become a more pressing conversation, but it's never too early to dream.
Let's go to the wildcard teams. The Calgary Flames, they have the first of 2 wildcard spots in the West.
I'll call them a contender. You know, we haven't seen it yet entirely. They haven't, it's been kind of a up and down start, I'd say, for Calgary. But, I think that if you step back and look at it, we should probably expect there to be some time for everything to sort of gel and fit together. We know that they're another team that'll be out there looking to add a forward before the deadline. And they still played reasonably well for spurts. So, they're not blowing the doors off teams like New Jersey and Boston and Vegas. But I still think that they're going to be a difficult outcome playoff time. I think that they're going to find themselves a little bit more by then. And, they've also got last year to build on too. So I still see them as a contender, and, no obvious glaring holes. Again, like there's no one part where I'm like, which is where I get to with Edmonton, right? Like I'm having a hard time imagining that working for them in net. So I have Calgary still as a contender.
We have now 4 teams tied for that second wildcard spot.
Oh.
You already mentioned that the Edmonton Oilers are a pretender, and you listed the reasons why. So I'll have you go through the 3 other teams. Let's start with the St. Louis Blues.
Ooh, pretender still. I know that they had 8-game losing streak and then a big winning streak, and they still got good players, but I don't see it. I don't see it. Shot metrics aren't that kind to them. Like, again, this is NHL, and there really is parity in a lot of ways at the top. So circumstances might change that have my view change, but based on the start to the season, I'm not giving them the contender label.
Okay. What about the Minnesota Wild?
Pretender. They've taken a step back from last year. I think that was expected. They're feeling the pain of the difficult decision to buy out Ryan Suter and Zach Parise. They've got a huge cap charge on their books this year for that limits what they can do to improve the team. I like the direction they're going big picture in Minnesota. I don't think this is going to be the year where they're truly contending for a cup, just because how can you do that with so much dead money on your cap? I think it's asking a lot. They're not really going to be in a position to add significantly at the deadline unless they have a significant injury to another top player, which then you're down that top player. So I think it's pretender status right now for the Wild.
And finally, the Nashville Predators.
Pretender. They're good players, just aren't good enough. It's not every team has good players, right? But when you stack them up against Colorado's top players or Vegas's top players, like I think that they fall short in that area. They're not a bad team. I just don't see them as a team that's could threaten to win 4 playoff rounds come April, May, and June.
And with that, Contenders and Pretenders comes to an end. Here's the list of contending teams: New Jersey, Carolina, Boston, Toronto, the New York Rangers, Tampa, Florida, Dallas, Colorado, Winnipeg, Vegas, the Los Angeles Kings, and the Calgary Flames. And the
Is that too many
list,
contenders?
you can
13?
really have it as many as you want. 1,
Right.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And then on the Pretender side, you have 8. So you have Edmonton, the Islanders, Detroit, Pittsburgh, Seattle, St. Louis, Minnesota, and Nashville.
I'm pretty confident with that. Like, I'm comfortable with that.
I think this is a pretty good list.
The team that Edmonton's going to make me look bad for a second straight year, because like you could lose a lot of money betting against Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl. Like, those guys could maybe win a cup on their own. We'll see. But I do think, look, losing Kane, it's going to be tough for them. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, and look, Jack Campbell has not been good in Edmonton. I get it.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I came to know Jack a little bit during his time in Toronto. Like, he's such a great guy. it would be cool to see him go on a run, and he's done it in the past. So that's what could change there. That will maybe flip the P to a C for me. But until I see it and see proof of it, then I'm not going to believe it as an article of faith.
All right. With that, stick tap time, stick taps and cross checks. Do you have a stick tap? Are you going to keep it positive this week? Do you have someone you want to cross check? Probably a stick tap this week. It's
a stick tap. Patrice Bergeron, 1,000 points, future first ballot Hall of Famer. It's funny. I just saw him in Toronto after a morning skate. When I was talking about that tournament in Riga, he actually was on Team Canada there at the World Championship in 2006. And after the scrum, he goes, Riga. He pointed, he still remembers 16 years later, which is crazy. There wasn't a lot I might've been the only Canadian reporter there, but it's just funny that his mind went there. Just an absolute class guy. Even for those that don't know him, what you see in your impression of him is bang on. And I love the way the Bruins came on the ice and celebrated his 1,000th point in Tampa. You can't do that too much, but I think it just shows, what he means to them, what he means to the league. It's cool to see him hit that kind of milestone. So stick tap to you, Patrice.
I will give my stick tap to Evgeny Malkin, who recently played his 1,000th NHL game. And the Pittsburgh Penguins took the time to celebrate that on Wednesday night against the Flames. Comes down to a shootout between those two teams, and Evgeny Malkin wins it, and he throws his stick in the air in celebration. Loved it. Evgeny Malkin, it's weird you think of the fact that he was a number 2 guy in the draft behind Alexander Ovechkin. He's kind of the number 2 guy behind Sidney Crosby in Pittsburgh, but he is an all-world player, a future Hall of Fame talent. And he had moments where he played like the best player in the world. So Evgeny Malkin deserves all the praise he can get. So congratulations to him and stick taps to him on him playing his 1,000th NHL game.
I was sure you were going to cross-check the idiots in the crowd at the Prudential Center.
I could have done that. That could have actually been a really good idea. But I also wanted to shout out Evgeny Malkin. We're
still getting used to do we want to focus on the negative or the positive? We're two positive guys. So
that's it.
But that cross-check was just waiting for you. You could have just cross-checked all those morons.
You know what it is? If we didn't acknowledge it, I probably would have went for it. But since we did, and we didn't kind of mention Evgeny Malkin in passing, I was like, you know what? Let me just mention Malkin and give him his due. I picked positive over negative. Now, our next partner is a pretty cool product. Let's talk about Athletic Greens. If you're looking to get better gut health, more energy, or a stronger immune system in a really easy, natural way, you've got to check out Athletic Greens. I'm sure you'll agree that most of us are not huge fans of having to take a bunch of pills or vitamins in the morning, but with Athletic Greens, you can get rid of all of those extra vitamin bottles and finally make some room in your cabinet. Athletic Greens is an all-in-one solution that actually tastes good. You'll actually enjoy getting your daily vitamins in. So what is this stuff? With one delicious scoop of Athletic Greens, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and even aging. All of the things. It's also lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or you are gluten-free. It also contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals, or artificial anything, while still tasting good. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition, especially heading into the flu and cold season, just around the corner. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. No need for a million different pills and other supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do, go visit athleticgreens.com/Johnston. It's CJ's last name. athleticgreens.com/Johnston to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. It's time to knock that new business idea out of the park with Shopify, the all-in-one commerce platform to start, run, and grow your business. Forget the off-season work. Shopify makes it simple to sell to anyone from anywhere, whether you're selling warm-ups, or wall hangers. It's time to start selling with Shopify and join the platform simplifying commerce for millions of businesses worldwide. With Shopify, you'll customize your online store to your brand, discover new customers, and build the relationships that create die-hard fans. Shopify fields all the sales channels to grow a winning business, from an in-person POS system to an all-in-one e-commerce platform, even across social media platforms like TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. And thanks to 24/7 support and free on-demand business courses, Shopify is on your team every step of the way. It's how every minute new sellers around the world score their first sale with Shopify, and you can too. When you're ready to take your winning idea to the world, team up with Shopify, the commerce platform powering millions of businesses down the street and around the globe. You can try out Shopify for free today and start selling anywhere. You can sign up for a free trial at shopify.com/Johnston, all in lowercase, shopify.com/Johnston. That is the code that we were able to have for this ad today. Shopify.com/Johnston. It's CJ's last name. And you use that code, you can start selling online today. Shopify.com/Johnston.
Julian, quickly before we go, I've got a movie recommendation for you.
Oh, I need to hear this. CJ's movie quarter time.
I was going to say, and the real fans, the OGs know that I don't watch many movies, but
yes,
I'm getting in the Christmas holiday spirit, and I watched Spirited this week and rather enjoyed it. I did it under the guise, Ryan Reynolds, right? He's a man of the moment in the NHL, so figured might as well check out his latest work, Will Ferrell, and it was excellent. So I highly recommend that to you if you got any free time this weekend to watch a movie.
All right, you heard it from the man. Watch Spirited with Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds. This was not an ad, by the way.
No, I actually just
decided,
like, all this pressure from you to watch movies. I decided to watch a movie the other night.
It's kind of funny. I'm like applying this pressure. Well, it's not really me, but it's funny. But at least you did it. We have a CJ's movie quarter. So watch that movie if you feel so inclined. That's going to do it for today's show. We'll be back on Monday. Get your questions in for Ask CJ. Join the Discord. Follow us both on Twitter. The Twitter accounts are in the description. CJ, anything you want to add before we sign off officially? Or are we good?
Don't bring any hate to my mentions. We're just having fun with our contenders and pretenders.
That's a good way of putting it. For CJ, I'm Julian, saying so long and peace. Enjoy your weekend.
The Chris Johnston Show.
Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada's sportsbook.
Inside the game, twice a week. Follow Chris on Twitter @ReporterChris. And follow Julian McKenzie @JK McKenzie.
The Chris Johnston Show.